Anyways, I'm sorry for not uploading a lot of content in the recent days. I've been doing a lot of stuff in regard to my personal life and did not have much free time. At the time of recording, I only have about 12 days before I move back into my apartment for college, so my time is limited. I know I already made a video discussing Big Rigs and Midnight Race Club, but I believe it needs a video of its own. We need to know more about why it was made, who actually made it, the history of the game, the gameplay, and most importantly, the world records. There is a lot of information that will be covered, so let's get right into it. Let's start with the better known of the two. Somewhere in Ukraine, in late 2003, a group of less than 10 people working in a company called Stellar Stone worked on what could be argued as the worst game, or the best game, ever made in history. Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing is a PC game published by Game Mill Entertainment. The game focuses itself on fast-paced racing, driving around in pickup trucks or big rigs in various environments. The back of the game's box cover does say, "From the desert to the plains, you will be hauling loads and trying to stay one step ahead of the law as you climb into your big rig for non-stop driving action." It even says that the game features thousands of miles of highways and byways across America. Oh, we also can't forget the ultimate traffic stopper, a police roadblock. How could we forget about the biggest inconvenience in our non-stop driving action? The game credits a man named Sergey Titov with being the producer and co-programmer of Big Rigs, but in a Q&A published in YourWinner.com, it was revealed that he had no involvement with the development, nor did he have any ability to stop the release of the game. Since the team in Ukraine were in charge of the distribution, the game was released as a presumably pre-alpha stage on November 20th, 2003 to many American Walmart stores. Titov, seeing the result of the game, offered every customer who bought the game to replace their copy of Big Rigs with an Activision game. This sounds very generous of Titov after I assume he saw the game how he realized how terrible it was. It made sense that he wanted to make it up for this colossal mistake, but it was reported that only 20 people got their Activision copy. As for most terrible games, bad games get bad reviews, and Big Rigs was no different. It is included on Wikipedia's page, List of Video Games Notable for Negative Reception. Big Rigs has been critically acclaimed to be one of the worst, if not the worst game ever made. It has received numerous abysmal reviews, including an 8 out of 100 from Metacritic, their lowest rating ever, a 1 out of 10 from GameSpot. I must mention that Alex Navarro, who reviewed Big Rigs, suggested a 0 out of 10 specifically just for Big Rigs.
Can't go any lower. We don't hand out zeros, but maybe we should have for Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing.
But some people have a different perspective. So why does Big Rigs have these bad reviews? When you load up the game, you see a main menu screen that looks rather generic. There is no background music or any sound effects. It's completely silent. What's funny is that in the poorly designed credits screen, somebody named Alex Burton was assigned to create audio for this game. In the options screen, there are 4 settings that all make sense, but the only options for textures and terrain are low and medium. What's worse is that when you try changing the setting for effects, it also changes the settings for nature density as well. The same thing goes for if you change nature density, it also changes effects quality. This makes no sense at all. Also, reset to defaults changes all settings to low. Lastly, the high score page is not functional. All scores are occupied by driver 1 with the same time of 2:07.80. Even if you get a faster time in any different course, it doesn't show up. Before we discuss the speedruns, we have to understand the 2 main categories of Big Rigs. The first category is any percent. To explain what any percent is, it is done by completing the last course, Small Town Road, first, then going through the other courses in order. Because in version 1, the checkpoint system does not reset after completing a race, and therefore you instantly complete it, and this is done for the other courses until you reach Night Ride, in which the game crashes and the run is complete. The second category is 100%. It is what we normally think of 100%, we complete the entirety of the game. But instead of using version 1, you must use version 3, which makes Nightride possible to use, but it redirects you to Double Passage too. You still start at Small Town Road and complete every course, but now including Nightride. The very first speedrun of Big Rigs goes all the way back to May 15, 2015, when Australian user Call Me Liam, or Liam, submitted the first any percent run. This time was noted at 156 RTA and 114 IGT. The way IGT is determined in any percent is by taking the time it took for the user to complete Small Town Road, and then the time it takes for the user to menu from the main menu screen to the next course. For the sake of brevity, all future times will be listed in IGT. Let's look at Liam's attempt. We immediately notice that Liam is going in reverse. This is because the vehicle travels faster in reverse than forwards, due to the developers never thinking that the user would drive backwards, hence no speed cap. Liam has memorized the map pretty well, knowing when to take turns and when to continue going straight. This is very important and will be important for the future times we will see. At 26 seconds in the video, you can see that Liam has stopped the vehicle and the Big Rig has instantly stopped, another sign of improper game development. Liam continues to complete Small Town Road in reverse and finishes in a time of just over a minute. This is a very good start for driving in reverse, as the controls become very hard to maintain as your speed increases. Liam's time did not last very long, as 9 days later, another Australian user, Shigbeard_, took that time down to 45 seconds. However, I do not know much about this video as it is private. Surprisingly, Shigbeard's time would stay on top for over 2 years. On June 26, 2017, a French user named JV improved the record time by a mere 4 seconds. In JV's run, we can see the first recorded use of double reverse, when a user holds down both spacebar and the down arrow key, as both function as a reverse. JV also cuts a corner to save an extra time. JV's run is also the first recorded run to skip a checkpoint. This is another major flaw in Big Rigs. A user is allowed to skip one checkpoint but must get the next one. By doing this, 2 checkpoints are counted even though you technically only crossed 1. This can be abused and make the fastest route to complete a course very short. JV does this again at the end, and upon reaching the straight road segment, he goes back into double reverse and completes Small Town Road in just under 33 seconds, which is about half a minute faster than Liam's time. Literally the very next day, Shigbeard booted up Big Rigs and recorded a 139 RTA, which is not a new record, but his IGT was. His IGT time was 38 seconds, 3 seconds faster than JV's 41. Shigbeard learned to use double reverse and to skip more checkpoints just like JV, and used better menuing skills and had faster load times that granted him a new record. Shigbeard's record would stay on top for over a year, until a user thousands of miles away from Australia would take on Shigbeard and eventually take the crown. That user from Germany is Nimputs. Like both JV and Shigbeard, Nimputs learned how to use double reverse, cut corners, skip checkpoints more efficiently, all while maintaining a higher speed, shaving a mere 2 seconds from Shigbeard's time. Nimputs' time would remain the best for almost 3 years. It seemed like nobody would be able to beat Nimputs, even when other new users came by. In June 2017, Scotland user Lane submitted a 157 run, but that was over 1 minute slower than Nimputs' 36-second run. A year later, Israel user GoGoName submitted a run in early August 2018, but was even more behind at 2:11. Later that month, it looked like Polish user Rajzon would be near Nimputs, but can only reach 52 seconds, 16 seconds slower. It looked like Nimputs was here to stay, until a random 17-year-old from America got a laptop and downloaded Big Rigs in June 2021. That random teenager is Szymanski, also known as me, but I'm not a teenager anymore. Sorry, Dr. Disrespect. Anyways, Szymanski, should I say Szymanski or I began playing Big Rigs in the middle of June 2021 during the midst of the pandemic. I began my actual speedruns on June 21st, with my first time being a 257 RTA. I had no idea what IGT was, as I did not have a speedrun.com account at the time. I learned how to drive in reverse, then a double reverse, and continued my progression with Big Rigs and was immediately seeing results. On my 5th day of speedrunning, I achieved a 132 RTA and a 37.5 IGT. My RTA time was a new world record, but my IGT was 1.5 seconds behind Nimputs. I technically got a world record, but because speedrun.com prioritizes IGT over RTA for big rigs, Ninputs was still on top. I was right there, and I was so close to beating Ninputs and taking the title. So I went back to big rigs and continued my speedrun attempts. I began to master double reverse, memorizing the turns with Small Town Road, learning which checkpoints to skip and which ones to take, and learning which angle to move my mouse and at the right speed to reach the next button at the fastest time. The next day, I recorded a 131 RTA and a 36.20 IGT. The RTA and IGT beat both my previous RTA record and Ninput's IGT record by just milliseconds. I had now become the official record holder in big rigs any percent. However, I knew that this was not good enough, and I was even more determined to get the fastest time humanly possible. And I did just that. In just a span of a few days, I took the 36.20 IGT just down to over 29 seconds. For RTA's sake, that time went down from 131.84 to 123.09. This may not sound like a lot, but given that the game could now be completed in around 90 seconds, every single second matters. And for some reason I stopped playing big rigs. I think it was because it was nearing the end of summer vacation and I had to get ready for senior year of high school. Yes, I was in high school when I got the record. My record was 7 seconds ahead of Ninput's IGT, but 10 seconds ahead RTA wise. This gap was huge. My record would stay untouched by virtually everybody, including myself, until I got bored in late 2023 and decided to pick up the game again. The first 72 hours of September 2023 were arguably my best hours ever as a speedrunner. September 1st, 2023. Over 2 years since my world record run. I had very close calls that day, with runs being 1 to 2 seconds behind the record. I knew that if I kept trying, something big would happen, and something big did happen. I completed Small Town Road in a 21:09. Not my best time, but it was a good time. I finished over a second faster than my record. I had good menuing, but not perfect. My hands were very shaky as I knew that if I pulled it off, it would be huge. I had good load times and was on the verge of a new record. I loaded Night Ride around 119 and at 120.90, I had broken my own record by over a second.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Fucking finally. Oh.
September 2nd, 2023. I am not kidding, it wasn't even like 24 hours later. I don't know how I pulled it off. I had a mid-21 Small Town Road, which is unacceptable by any standards. But my menuing was almost pristine and I did not overshoot my mouse path to Night Ride, which is what happened in my former time. This somehow got me a 120.01 RTA. This technically should have been in a 119, but I had a delayed reaction when ending the run. Literally the same day, I was doing more world record attempts and on a run, I got an excellent Small Town Road time of 20.93. This was 0.6 seconds faster than the standing record. My menuing was still on point, right where I wanted to be. I had previous close calls before this run where I was ahead, but poor menuing cost me the run. I hope this will not happen again, and thankfully it didn't. I finished this run with a 119.44 RTA, the first official sub 120. September 3rd, 2023. Again, 2 records in one day. That meant that in the span of not even 48 hours, probably closer to 36, I broke my own world record 4 times. The first world record of September 3rd began with the mediocre Small Town Road of 21:03. If this helps, my acceptable time frame for a Small Town Road is around 20.7 to 21.15. Anything higher and the chance of a record is rather low. I was less than 1/10 of a second behind my old record, and I remained optimistic and hoped that my menuing would put me ahead, and it did. I had great menuing and had very good load times. I got myself a 119.05. I had a delayed reaction again, and this should have been closer to a high 118. Again, a few hours later, I thought that I had it in me to get a 118, as I technically did, but a bad reaction screwed me. Little did I know, I was about to get a record that I to this day believe will be unmatched for years. My movement at Small Town Road was near perfect, going from the 3rd to 5th checkpoint at the right angle. This is very hard to do as you have to go through a wall which covers the checkpoint. I then had to go at a very specific angle, going up and down hills while also passing through certain checkpoints as well. I continued my way onto the finish line with a stellar 20.89. This was 0.2 of a second ahead of my record pace. My menuing was clean, no stutters and no jaggedy motions for the most part. I finished the run at 1:18.63, or 28 seconds IGT, the first official sub 119 RTA, and remains today the current world record in any percent. So that's any percent. Now onto 100%. The first 100% run was submitted on March 12, 2016 by Welsh user Supercat126 with a time of 11:58. Unfortunately, this video is also private and I cannot provide any more info about this. For most of 100% category's history, times were recorded in RTA. Because of that, all future times will be discussed in RTA. The first 100% run with actual video proof belongs to Lane, who submitted an 11:47 over a year after Supercat126's run. We can see in Lane's run that the camera is extremely shaky. I have looked for every possible explanation for this and there is no clear answer. From my personal experience, this only happens when you have not shut down or restarted your computer in a very long time, and when you load big rigs, the camera is very shaky. Lane completes every course driving forwards in rather casual method, completing the game how the developers intended. Just over a year after Lane submitted his run, British user NoPen2 submitted a run of 11:43 on July 17, 2018, just 4 seconds faster than Lane. I guess I'm making this video at a really bad time because this video is also private. About 3 weeks later, on August 8th, GoGoName entered the 100% race and immediately took the top spot with an impressive 10:05, over a minute and a half ahead of NoPen2. GoGoName's video was the first verified 100% video where the user goes in reverse to complete the courses. What is also noticeable in this run is his ability to adjust the speed, which is rather difficult as the user must be able to hold either spacebar or down arrow key, and the up arrow key. GoGoName must have felt rather confident with this performance. Making up a minute of time is not easy, especially in a racing game. But NoPen2 is an excellent learner, and with GoGoName showing how he quickly beat 100%, maybe he can come back swinging. GoGoName's record would stay on top for only 2 months before NoPen2 came back with a shocking 9:42. He had taken 2 minutes off his previous best time and was now 23 seconds ahead of the previous record. NoPen2 learned to drive in double reverse and had a greater control of the big rig even at high speeds, and did not have to stop as much as GoGoName. As NoPen2 was taking the world record back from GoGoName, Ninputs is going to make his mark and absolutely blow away the competition. Just 8 days after NoPen2 took the record, Ninput submitted his first speedrun of big rigs, and it wasn't just a minor improvement, this was huge. World records normally do not get taken down by this much, but Ninputs did it anyway. He turned in a time of 7:42, a whole 2 minutes faster than the previous record. Ninputs made his mark, but as I said, NoPen2 is an excellent learner, and he was ready to take back the record that was once his. Literally some hours later, NoPen2 recorded a whopping 6:56. This was the first sub 7 minute 100% run and beat Ninputs by 46 seconds. This was huge. NoPen2 was able to control double reverse, adjust the speed, and if he did make a mistake such as missing a necessary checkpoint, he quickly went back and got it. His reaction after finishing his run sums it up pretty well.
There it is! There it fucking is! Fuck yes! Fuck yes! Sub 7 has been hit! Sub 7 is a thing! Sub 7 is fucking real! It's happened!
The very next day, we would also see history be made. This was something that at the time, only NoPen2 was able to do. Nobody was able to even come close to this. 5:59, the first ever sub 6 run. I think I have pretty bad luck because this video is also private. I would have liked to see NoPen2's reaction, as I assume he would have been very excited. NoPen2 was on a marathon, and he wanted to finish this marathon on a high note, and he did just that. On November 6, 2018, just 10 days after his 5:59, he took that down to even further at 5:16. Thankfully this video is not private, so I can provide some insight. He begins by going in double reverse and cutting off the turn at Small Town Road and skips checkpoints to minimize the driving. He did have a few moments of time loss in Double Passage 1, when he did a loop when he did not need to. In Forgotten Road 1, he got the 6th checkpoint when he really didn't need it and could have just skipped over to the 7th. He missed a checkpoint near the end and had to loop back twice before getting it. But besides that, his time was very impressive, beating inputs by almost 3 entire minutes. No Pen 2's time was completely unmatched, and nobody would come close. In April 2021, American user JSR_ tried to make an effort to beat No Pen 2, but could only get a best time of 7:12, which is still about 2 minutes slower than No Pen. Like Ninputs with any percent, it looked like nobody would get close. But as we know, records are meant to be broken, even No Pen 2. His record stood for 1,964 days. That is 5 years, 4 months, and 19 days. That is how long it stood. This record was unmatched, until a user named Szymanski finished his grind at 80% and shifted focus to 100%. March 23rd, 2024. I broke the record that nobody would come close to, and I beat No Pen 2's time by 20 seconds, which is pretty massive. Again, like any percent, I knew this time was not great and I went back to improve it as much as possible. The results speak for themselves. In about 1 week, I brought down my 455 to 416. Then in another 2 weeks, that was taken down to 359, the first sub 4 100%. Then 9 days later, I set a new record of 354, which is the current record as of August 2024. I know this time is not perfect and can be vastly improved. All of my IL records are way faster than the times in my 100% run. I created a spreadsheet with my IL times and the time seen in my 100% run to help understand how much time I can make up. We can see that in the available time column, I have almost 26 seconds of time I can save if I match my IL time in every course. I also have a small section dedicated to theoretical time, and as of August 6, 2024, it is at 3:23:98, which does not include menuing. So that's the gist of Big Rigs. It is a game that has more flaws than strengths, and has a rather interesting history. If I did not find Big Rigs, I wonder what I'd be doing right now. Now let's move on to Midnight Race Club. No, this is not Midnight Club Street Racing. This is the off-brand Walmart discount version of it. In the early 2000s, it looked like street racing games were rather popular and using a night theme setting, which added more effect and popularity. While Midnight Club Street Racing did that very well, the Stella Stone version did a terrible job. This is Midnight Race Club Supercharged. I mean, don't get me wrong, the box cover looks kinda cool and appealing. On the back, it says, "Get ready for the most realistic street racing game ever." And it also says, "If you don't have the confidence and car to take it all the way to the top, go home and cry to your mommy." Wow. Midnight Race Club and Big Rigs were supposed to be one game put together. Sergey Tito said that the publisher of the game, Game Mill, was originally supposed to release one stock keeping unit, but later went with 2. We can see the Midnight Race Club has many copy-paste or reskins of the Big Rigs layout. The first thing you notice is that the main menu looks a lot like the Big Rigs, just a slight change of the gradient, and that the logo matches Midnight Race Club. If you select the options or high score, it uses the exact same format and background as Big Rigs. If you decide to choose Random Race, it's possible that you can get the trucks on Big Rigs, which is not supposed to happen, but this does show you what Big Rigs would look like if there was collision. When doing a custom race, we can see that there are 3 options: sports cars, pickup trucks, and motorcycles. We do not see the option to race in trucks, which I assume is the missing 4th option. There are options for each type of vehicle, but it must be noted that the car models are completely stolen from other games without any form of attribution. Remember in Big Rigs how Night Ride crashes the game? Well, it doesn't crash the game anymore in Midnight Race Club. Instead, it redirects you to Small Town Road, but there is a way to crash the game. When selecting a vehicle, choose the sports car option, and then select the Firelight car, and then pick any course. The gameplay experience leaves a lot to be desired, but it is a slight improvement compared to Big Rigs. When starting a race, the computer does move, which adds to the racing theme. However, the computer never crosses the finish line, so even with this fix, you still can't lose. A big improvement is that you cannot go up steep hills anymore. The game makes it so that it stops you at a certain point, but it is still pretty flawed. Instead of sending you in reverse due to, gravity, the game keeps you locked in place. Also, you can still go up steep hills in reverse. Going off of that, the reverse speed limit is still not patched. You can drive at insane speeds in reverse, but with the engine noise, it can be a bit agonizing. In big rigs, the checkpoint system does not reset after completing a race, allowing for you to complete courses instantly. This bug is fixed in Midnight Race Club, and it actually works. This is the only fix that works no matter what you try to do. Even with the fixes, there are still problems. The biggest improvement in this game is that they added collision. This adds to the realism, but the collision sound is just terrible. To add on to this, the collision box for each vehicle is larger than the actual vehicle itself. In Double Passage 1, you can pass through these trees, but you somehow hit one even when you're not close to it. For some reason, the motorcycles are very small and you can even fit through this tiny space in Double Passage 1. If we look at the back of the box art, it says, "Awesome supercharged motorcycles that scream." The only thing screaming is me in agony as I play this complete garbage of a game. Sadly, driving in reverse regardless of the vehicle makes the camera angle become impossible to manage. So, speedrunning this game is far more difficult than big rigs, but people did it anyway. The first recorded speedrun was on August 30th, 2021 by myself, done in a 1050 RTA or 937 IGT. For simplicity, all future times will be mentioned in RTA. My 1050 was more or less not even really a speedrun, but just an attempt to beat the game. The next day, Nimput set a new time of 10:13, beating my time by 37 seconds. I responded a few hours later with a 10:11. And about 15 hours later, Nimput went up me with a 9:45. For some reason, I just couldn't get close to 9:45. I came close many times and got new PBs, but no new record. I must also mention that September 2021 would be the last time we would ever see or hear from Nimputs for anything related to big rigs or Midnight Race Club, as he ventured off into other video games. I will say though, was that his 9:45 stayed on top for over 2 years until I beat it again in early February 2024 with a 9:41. Also around this time, I met fellow American user KRizzle72, also known as Kyle, in a Twitch stream. He was playing big rigs as his followers suggested it to him for a joke. I just so happened to find his stream and I began talking to him, while trying to keep my status a little bit hidden. After seeing his 100% attempt secure him 6th place, I partly revealed who I was, and after he realized that I was the world record holder, it was a rather funny revelation. And a few weeks later, I showed him Midnight Race Club and he began to speedrun the game. Throughout the months of February and March, Kyle and I were in some form of friendly rivalry, exchanging new IL records in Double Passage 1, 2, and Small Town Road. As of August 2024, I have 2 IL records and Kyle also has 2 IL records. When speedrunning Midnight Race Club, there are 2 main categories, all courses and Ultra NAV %. All courses is essentially any percent where you complete the game as fast as you can. Ultra NAV % is a reference to the Ultra NAV UI in the corner of the screen when you are racing. Essentially, you must get all checkpoints in every race to do this. I am gonna be quite honest, explaining the speedrun tactics for Midnight Race Club is a rather waste of time, because since you can't really drive backwards without the camera screwing you over, and that there is collision and you can't drive through anything anymore, the fun and skill needed is severely reduced. It really isn't fun playing a game where the fastest way to beat it is by only driving fast forwards and just cutting corners. Even with this game being published 2 months after Big Rigs, even with more time to work on this game, there are still monumental blunders in this game. I almost want to believe that the developers just didn't care at all when making both Big Rigs and Midnight Race Club. It just seems implausible, if not impossible, that in 2003 and 2004, games like this were published, and were advertised as great racing games, and this is what we have to see. I do want to thank AVGN and Alex Navarro for doing what they did with Big Rigs and giving it a platform. The videos brought to light the world of bad video games and did so in an incredibly entertaining fashion. In 2006, Stellar Stone shut down and took down their website, and all contact information about them has been removed. It is a bit upsetting, but knowing how horrible all of their games were, it makes sense that they shut down. Anyways, that's Big Rigs and Midnight Race Club. Maybe you learned something new, or maybe you already knew all of this. Whichever it is, this video was definitely really fun to make, and seeing my old performances was nice because it reminded me when I was still learning the game, and taking down records that had stood for so long. But I know that one day in the future, my records will be beaten. It could be next month, next year, 3 years, or even 5 years. Who knows?